adjust for technical difficulties. We appreciate your patience. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I hope that we're tuned in today. We got to start with technical difficulties. Doing a service on social media, why would that happen? It is unexplainable, or very explainable, one or the other. I'm Reverend T.K. Barger. I'm the senior minister at First Unitarian Church of Toledo, and I'm joined by Mickey Emsch, our music director, and our worship associate today. We also have Bonnie Rowe, our accompanist for our service today. And we want to welcome you to the Toledo Unitarians Sunday service. We're glad you're on YouTube. And Mickey, do we have announcements?
Let us see. Do we?
Can
you hear me? Unfortunately,
Uh-oh. The announcement that I can think of is we are on YouTube again next week, but the week after will be another outdoor service. It will be our Toledo Pride service at 11 a.m. in our backyard, and our speaker will be our very own Lexi Heyman Staples. So please come to the Pride service then, and if you want to come back during the week, that Thursday evening at 7 p.m., there will be a multi-faith service with Equality Toledo. It will be a Toledo Pride service as part of the formal Toledo Pride weekend activity. So I hope you will join us for that. And as we continue to try with our sound right now, it looks like Mickey is getting a different microphone. And we are about to begin the service proper. So give us one moment, and we will be there. So let's try this now.
hello.
Are you on microphone?
I think I am.
Then let us
morning.
begin our service proper with the opening words.
You'll find these opening words are fitting for today's service. This is In Praise of Technology and Social Media by Ren Benevolence Grave. In praise of computers and routers and servers and all the hardware and software that can help us build our connectedness. In praise of all the gremlins that live in the machines and bugs our programs and help us to practice patience. In praise of the trolls who dwell in the internet and push us to live out our first principle in real time. In praise of power surges that eat our data and devour our final draft, for giving us the opportunity to rebuild and remember that our work is as much transient as it is transcendent. In praise of the error, page not found, which reminds us that with some people, we need to find new paths to make connections because not everyone uses the same keywords. In praise of servers that drop our connections, which remind us that all who serve have built-in limits to their capacity. In praise of communication and connection, whether it is face-to-face or Facebook to Facebook. we all risk errors, hurt feelings, and misunderstandings. But it is also always worth the risk.
In some parts of today's service, we bring words from Reverend Naomi King, a Unitarian Universalist minister who has a practice of regularly posting prayers and words for practice for public use on social media. Here is her morning prayer for today. Graciousness and wisdom guide my words, deeds, and heart in this day, to nurture loving kindness and justice, and to be rooted in reverence and thankfulness. And please join me in reciting the covenant of this congregation, which is not a creed, but is what we hope we hold in common. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now it's time for our congregational singing with Mickey and Bonnie will lead us in number 331, Life is the Greatest Gift of All.
Life is the greatest gift of all the riches on this earth. Life and its creatures, great and small, of high and lowly birth. So treasure it and measure it with deeds of shining worth. Mind is the brightest gift of all, its thought no barrier mars. It seeks creation's hidden plan, its quest surmounts all bars. It rains the wind, it chains the storm, it weighs the outmost stars. We are of life, its shining gift, the measure of all things. Up from the dust our temple shift, our vision soars on wings. For seed and root, for flower and fruit, our grateful spirit sings.
Our story today is The Golden Chain, an Ife creation story as developed by Erica Shadow Song. Long ago, before there were any people, all life existed in the sky. Olarun lived in the sky, and with Olarun were many Orishas. They all lived by a young baobab tree, where they found everything they ever needed for food, work, or play. In fact, they were all very creative and made things all the time, clothing themselves in beautiful robes and skirts and gold jewelry. Now, Olarun had told them that all the very day was theirs to explore. But all of the Orishas seemed happy to stay near the baobab tree, except for Obatala. Obatala was the curious Orisha who wasn't content to live blissfully by the baobab tree. Like all Orishas, he had certain powers, and he wanted to put them to use. As he pondered what to do, he looked far down through the mists below the sky. As he looked and looked, he began to realize that there was a vast empty ocean below the mist. Obatala went to Olorun and said, "I want to go down from the heavens to the dark seas below and make something, maybe beings like you did, so I can share with them my knowledge and teach them." Olorun, who himself had been made by Olodumare, the mysterious God beyond all things, understood Obatala's desire to create and was more than willing to say yes. "I suggest you talk to Oranmila," he advised. He can see far into the future how things will go. And if anyone knows the magic you will need to do this, it is him. So Obatala consulted Oranmila of the far sight. Oranmila cast him seeds on his tray and frowned, looking at them thoughtfully. Finally, he said that Obatala would need, among other things, 3 important things to take with him: a small shell filled with powder made from the baobab tree, some palm kernels, and the sacred golden egg that contained all the spirits of the Orishas. You will also need a way to get down. Go to the goldsmith and ask him to make you a chain that reaches to the world below. Even though Obatala did not know what everything was for, he did exactly as Olorun said. First, he went to all the other Orishas and asked them for all the gold they had, which they gave him. Then he took it to the goldsmith and said, "Make me a gold chain that drops down into the world below so that I can climb safely down." He dressed in clean white robes and packed his belongings, the small shell with the tree powder and the palm seeds. Last, he removed the sacred egg from the tree and held it carefully clutched to his chest. Then Obatala began to climb down the golden chain, down to the dark, swirling waters. For 7 days he climbed, as the dark waters got closer and closer. On the last day, when he got to the end of the chain, he found that it was too short. Obatala hung there, swinging gently on the golden chain from heaven, wondering what to do. Then Oranmila, who was watching, called to him from above, "Use the shell." Obatala remembered the small shell and pulled it out of his pack. But he was carrying many things as he balanced in the air. That he did so, the powder in the shell spilled out onto the water. As the sand hit the waters, it formed masses of solid land, mountains, islands, and plains. And as he watched, he did not notice how tightly he was holding the egg until suddenly it cracked against his chest. Out of the egg flew the Sankofa, the great golden bird, who was always looking behind it into the past to carry its wisdom into the present. And with the Sankofa bird came the spirits of all the Orishas in a crowd of colors, carrying tools and musical instruments, machetes and crossbows, for they all had their own powers and knowledge. They were hunters and fighters, dancers and diviners, and they brought the powers of nature and the elements as they explored the new world, and each found a home where they were most comfortable. When all of the Orishas had been released into the world, Obatala himself got to work. He dropped from the golden chain onto the ground and took a walk, dropping the palm nuts into the ground. Great trees burst forth and grew with great speed as he hummed and walked along. Then he sat down and began to mold shapes in the sand and water until he had made many beings that looked a little bit like him and like the other Orishas. Olorun happened to look down from the skies as Obatala finished the people. And seeing that they were not yet alive, he took a deep breath and breathed their spirits into them. Obatala was so happy, but he began to notice something was wrong. The bodies were all different. They were not perfect. And the way they talked and behaved toward each other was sometimes strange and unkind. Then he remembered. During his crafting, he had gotten thirsty and taken some of the juice from the palm trees. But the juice had been fermented into wine and made him tipsy. He felt horrible. Obatala sat down and groaned into the earth. "I've been careless," he cried to himself, "and now the people will suffer because I was not paying attention to how I made them." Now the other Orishas had heard their brother groaning in pain, and from the forests and streams, the ocean and the forge, they spoke. "Obatala," they said, "didn't you create these beings so you could share your wisdom in the first place? What does it matter that they aren't perfect? Now not only you are here, but so are we. And we swear to you that we will also bring our gifts to help them. We will teach them all the things we know, how to take care of themselves, protect each other, and love each other as a great family, as we were. Whenever they go, wherever they go, and whatever happens to them, we promise you that as long as your world exists, they will find us in it." Obatala smiled as he listened to his brothers and sisters, comforted. For now he knew that whenever his people found trouble, they would have help to see them through it.
Our musical interlude today is "Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear." Love knocks and waits for us to hear, to open and invite. Love longs to quiet every fear and seeks to set things right. Love offers life in spite of foes who threaten and condemn. Embracing enemies, love goes the second mile with them. Love comes to heal the broken heart, to ease the troubled mind. Without a word, love bids us start to ask and seek and find. Love knocks and enters at the sound of welcome from within. Love
Please join me for our time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. We think of people today for illness, especially those in our congregation with cancer, and I am among those. And the people who have been affected by the continuing crisis of COVID-19. We meditate, contemplate, pray for the state of the world, where it looks like we're trying for normalcy, but it certainly isn't standard yet. And we also have our thoughts for those at play, such as Olympians, when we're awakening to so much more thanks to the public self-care of champions who are choosing mental health over spectacle. These are the meditation words today of my friend Naomi King. Bowing to the wisdom of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, may I dedicate myself to skillful effort in my daily life, to live in moderation and create harmony with my efforts in energy, in mind, and in heart. Let's observe 1 minute of silence.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Our reading today is from I Sold My Soul on eBay, Viewing Faith Through an Atheist's Eyes by Hemant Mehta. This was an auction posted on eBay in 2006. The person putting this up for auction is a well-known atheist and wider circles today with his blog, The Friendly Atheist. And you might have seen him recently as a contestant on Jeopardy! I am a 22-year-old atheist from Chicago. I stopped believing in God when I was 14. Currently, I am an active volunteer for a couple different national secular organizations. For one of them, I am the editor of a newsletter that reaches over 1,000 atheist/agnostic college students. I have written several letters to the editor to newspapers in and around Chicago, espousing my atheistic beliefs when church/state issues arose. However, while I don't believe in God, I firmly believe I would immediately change those views if presented with evidence to the contrary. And at age 22, this is possibly the best chance anyone has of changing me. So, here's my proposal. Every time I come home, I pass this old Irish church. I promise to go into that church every day for a certain number of days for at least an hour each visit. For every $10 you bid, I will go to the church for one day. For $50, you would have me going to Mass every day for a week. My promise, I will go willingly and with an open mind. I will not say or do anything inappropriate. I will respectfully participate in services, speak to priests, volunteer with the church if possible, do my best to learn about the religious beliefs of the churchgoers, and make conversation with anyone who is willing to talk, though I do reserve the right to ask the person questions about the faith. I will record my visits through a journal, pictures, or whatever method of proof you'd like. I will uphold my promise. Will I become religious? Well, I don't know. I really do have an open mind, but no one has convinced me to change my mind so far. Then again, I have also never attended a real church service. Perhaps being around a group of people who will show me the way could do what no one else has done before. If the Irish church doesn't work for you, we'll just find some other place local to me. I'll go into any place of worship, a Christian or Catholic church, a mosque, a synagogue, etc. They're all nearby. Makes no difference to me. But perhaps it's your faith that would change the mind of this atheist. I also assure you that if you bid on this, I will write an article about my experiences in the newspaper mentioned earlier. The article would reach over 1,000 college students who share my current views. Even if you don't end up changing my mind, perhaps you can change theirs. If you have any questions about this auction, I'd be glad to answer them.
So, what did I have in mind presenting a month-long series on screen time at a point when, for safety from COVID-19, we're presenting this on YouTube instead of in person? Do I start just by asking you to sit by looking at your TV or computer screen while I check my smartphone for social media updates? Is it now that I start paying attention to the YouTube chat? Are you over-screened already? What this is my summer preaching angle, when I give a month to a little bit different sermon content. The goal is still how we might be the religious people we are in our liberal Unitarian Universalist tradition, which means doing good and living morally, not having required beliefs common among us, but definitely living in this world where we are, trying to build beloved community. And we must deal with the technology in our face. Social media is now firmly a part of our existence, isn't it? Merriam-Webster, the dictionary I usually use, says that the first known use of the social media term is from 2004, describing forms of electronic communication such as websites for social networking and microblogging, through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content such as videos. Here it's 17 years later, and some of us feel inundated by social media. Others have only the vaguest concept of what it is, and they rarely, if ever, use computers. And many of us are trying to incorporate social media into our daily ways with some kind of hard-to-determine balance. You know me, I'm an advocate for it, as I'm a media person who admittedly could be more social myself. How do I consume social media? My primary medium is Facebook. And you might know that many say today that Facebook is for old people. Well, I'm old in that aspect. And most of my friends are old too, so Facebook fits me. I haven't Snapchatted or launched a TikTok account. I think I do well just to keep up with my colleagues, not be ahead of the curve or be an old guy among the young. I'm active on my Facebook page. It's a way of letting people know some of the important things going on in my life. Plus, I get to share memes and stories that interest me. I don't often crusade over an issue, but I think people know my position much of the time. I appreciate that people are concerned about me. They help me through some tough times, and they share my joy when I post good things. I want to remind you of my friending policy for Facebook. Because I'm the minister and I don't want to intrude on your life, I won't ask to friend you in the congregation. But because I'm the minister and I welcome your connection, if you ask to friend me, I'll accept your friend request. For Twitter and Instagram, those are just sites that you choose to follow, so I don't have to approve or deny your presence on my feeds there. Oh, and if you create different Facebook pages, I'm not good about keeping up. If I get a friend request from you and we're already friends, my first thought is that you've been hacked, not that you might have forgotten your password and started over with a new page. I use Twitter, not as much as Facebook, and my approach there remains a little bit more like the professional journalist rather than the Toledo Unitarians minister. For Instagram, it's just when I remember to post a photo and pretty much repeat what I posted on Twitter or Facebook. My habits aren't necessarily all good habits. So for your own social media use, find what works for you. Most of my following is via Facebook, then Twitter. That's the contact I keep in as I continue to figure out my social media ways. So what is it with me and social media? It keeps me informed. I'd say I post regularly in some way on Facebook, but I don't overpost, sharing too much or getting items lost in the onslaught. And I read others' posts more, and at least on Facebook, I try to keep up. The picture for this week's order of service has our Toledo Unitarians public social media sites on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We also have a private Facebook group and Tree of Life Toledo Pagans, Tree of Life Unitarian Pagans, The Gathering, First Unitarian Folk Choir at First Unitarian Church of Toledo, though that hasn't been active for quite a while with our music program changes. A group, Facebook Admins for UU Toledo, just for those of us trying to manage our social media. There's the 5-member Jedi Camp 2017 and a 5-member Compass Hospitality and Membership Group. Maybe we ought to do a little cleaning up there. There might be more. Mickey Emsch, besides serving as our music director, is also our social media coordinator. So if we get to TikTok or something like that, Mickey will be putting us online. For our church group, I'm not front and center, as I see that primarily for the group members to navigate themselves, not for the minister to guide. What I do there, though, is I try to keep a watch for people's birthdays so we can all celebrate. And for an aside, I know that the birthday wishes didn't come regularly during my brief sabbatical month in March. And as a result, Krista Schneider did not get birthday greetings. So please wish her a belated birthday today on the church Facebook group, okay? I also look for Blade letters to the editor from our congregants and share those. I truly appreciate that our church Facebook has not become a contentious place, which in some congregations is what you might call a war zone full of arguments. We're respectful. We follow our social media policy, and we try to share. Thanks. Social media is one of the tools we have now. And you know, even though I appreciate social media, it's not all good. There is a guest essay in today's New York Times. This is our chance to pull teenagers out of the smartphone trap, by psychologists Jonathan Hill and Jean M. Twenge, who have spent years, it says, studying the effect of smartphones and social media on our daily lives and mental health. They assert that smartphones in general and social media in particular are the culprits, the term they use, for the trends of rising rates of teenage depression, loneliness, self-harm, and suicide over about the past decade. The writers say that after Facebook added the like button in 2009, and then Twitter added a retweet button, users' feeds became algorithmicized based on engagement, which mostly meant a post's ability to trigger emotions. By 2012, the story goes, as the world now knows, the major platforms had created an outrage machine that made life online far uglier, faster, more polarized, and more likely to incite performative shaming. So I add to that, don't enable the outrage through your own social media use. I urge you not to get overly emotional based on what you're reading from your friends on social media, whether it's their reposts or even their own stories. Remember that some people post their own personalities, and a few show their better persons. Be better, okay? Back to the essay. The psychologists say that smartphones and social media don't just affect individuals, they affect groups. The smartphone brought about a planetary rewiring of human interaction. As smartphones became common, they transformed peer relationships, family relationships, and the texture of daily life for everyone, even those who don't own a phone or don't have an Instagram account. It's harder to strike up a casual conversation in a cafeteria or after class when everyone is staring down at their phones. It's harder to have a deep conversation when each party is interrupted randomly by buzzing, vibrating notifications. What we need to do, I say, is realize that there isn't going to be a reversal. Our resistance won't have much effect except on ourselves, and we'll learn to live with it. Please remind yourself that you're able to ignore your smartphone, that there are times to glance at it, times to look at it, and definitely times to let it be. The authors say we can't turn back time to the pre-smartphone era, nor would we want to, given the many benefits of the technology. That's what the psychologists who wrote this essay say. Screen time can potentially be a problem. We know that. But that doesn't mean that we can just eliminate visual media. Screens are part of our world now. There are people who really don't watch TV and who really do read good books. Smartphones aren't yet required devices, but now they're common, and we're almost always connected. Some of us carry perceptions that we're too good for screen time, that not owning a television set is a virtue in some way, sometimes for people who read rather than watch. And yes, I fully endorse reading and being book people. But I also fully endorse watching and having plenty of screen time. People's creativity isn't limited to words on a page, and we're finding new ways to connect. Screen time is not inherently bad, remember that. Social media is a type of news, after all. It's a form that can be more personal, less from mainstream media, and you might learn about your own neighborhood. I like to be informed. This is more personal, posted by people rather than organizations. But yes, along with plenty of shared news from the mainstream as well as from biased outlets. So be informed about the sources. At the moment, it seems, social media is still often people sharing what is important to them, you might say. Or they're being trite, often not important at all, but sharing something they like, so you might get to know your friends better because even that can give insight. And yes, there are ways to combine social media and religious practice. You heard my list of our Toledo Unitarians' social media places. The Unitarian Universalist Association has an active presence, and you can also seek out the wisdom of spiritual leaders with whom you identify. Or if you want to take your own angle, you might try with your own social media presence to be a Unitarian Universalist evangelist, showing how life lived with a liberal religious perspective can be better. eBay probably isn't considered social media, as it's primarily for selling and buying. But the Hemant Mehta auction, where it was said that he sold his soul, our reading before today's sermon, was kind of his start. And I highly praise his Friendly Atheist blog and the continuing attitude that being religious is one way of being in this world. And he won't attack people for religion, but he will highlight hypocrisy, for example. He would be a good Unitarian Universalist were he to choose more religious activity. So use social media to be informed about religion, whether it's your own or the religion news that ends up affecting us. Social media is here. It's as permanent as technology lets it be. So we won't go backward, and it will transform as it continues to be developed, used. I urge you to be aware, whether you're engaged lightly or heavily on social media. Find the good in it so you and social media can help to make yourself and the world better. So be it.
We come now to our time of offering. If you're on social media, you can find us on Facebook and learn more about UU Toledo, or find us at uutoledo.org. If you're so moved, you can also donate to our offering there by clicking on Give and then clicking on Online Giving. If you prefer snail mail, you can reach us at 3205 Glendale Avenue.
And now for our coming soon part of the service, our preview of next week's attractions, you might say. Our Spiritual Adventures Forum is having a time change. We're moving it a little bit earlier to 9:45 from the 10 a.m. that we have had. That gives us a little bit more flexibility, especially as we start considering going back to in-person services in September, we hope. The 9:45 time, next week's presenter will be Scott Carpenter talking about Toledo Metro Parks. And the 11 o'clock service next week, continuing this screen time series, is going to be me and digital newspapers.
We invite you to join us directly after today's service on Zoom for our social hour. That meeting code and password is in the YouTube description box if you click See More. With that, we have closing words by Naomi King. Graciousness and wisdom infuse my heart and mind and body with sweet softening into this blessed night, welcoming quiet and stillness, and the breath of breeze blowing through my being.
And as we extinguish the chalice, I bring these words. Let's send our flame today onto screens, on social media, that our Unitarian Universalist outlook may help to make a better world.